one can state with confidence that manned aircraft have got their own kill zone and that the personnel are increasingly moving away from this zone. Such a situation in the skies enables operations aiming to break through the enemy's air defense by depleting it with other means. Of course, this will require resources. This describes, in general terms, the changes that have taken place since the outbreak of the Russo-Ukrainian War, the largest conflict in Europe since World War II. I would like to reiterate that technical and technological progress has resulted in a profound transformation of all domains, sea, air, land, outer space, cyber, which continue to be rapidly transformed through the advance of AI. This process has fundamentally changed the role of traditional weapon systems and has undoubtedly affected not only the nature of warfare, but also the procedures for training, organization, and development of defense capabilities. All of this urges the military strategy, tactics, and operational prowess to adapt. It is the emergence of new technological solutions that leads to the most revolutionary changes in the conduct of hostilities. In the past, it was gunpowder, aircraft, or nuclear weapons. Today, it's unmanned or uncrewed systems and AI. So, talking about the war of the future, we have to admit that the militech revolution based on unmanned systems and AI provides unprecedented tools for war and destruction of the enemy's military and economic potential. And one can see the main trends in the development of these technologies. The key functions that are constantly evolving, including through the introduction of AI, and they, attention, pose a real threat, are A, the swarming function, and B, the autonomy function. Simply put, in the near future, with the development of the resource-based and hardware, we will see smarter and cheaper drones attacking by the dozens or even hundreds from different directions and altitudes, simultaneously from the air, ground, and water. The autonomy of these drones will develop in two main directions, either in a single centralized digital space, in a common system of real-time control and interaction, where all actions and processes are still controlled by humans, albeit with the help of AI. Alternatively, it will be drone to fully autonomous robotic complexes, swarms, both in combat and support functions. Such drones will be endowed with a high level of individual AI that learns and develops in real time within the limits necessary to perform combat missions, and will not require constant communication with each other or with command nodes to carry out their missions. This is, in fact, a transfer of responsibility to a separate tactical system, a drone. Another option is a combination of these basic architectures, whereby the advantages of the network are used whenever possible, and the system goes into the autonomous darkness when there is no other choice.
Then, logistically, the most pressing task for those who need long-term security guarantees is, among other things, to work on improving swarm intelligence algorithms on the one hand, and to find ways to combat and counteract drone swarms on the other. Naturally, the laboratory itself, where all this is currently being tested, is located in Ukraine. Let me remind you that on the night of the 6th to 7th of September 2025, Kyiv was attacked simultaneously by 862 Shahed-type kamikaze drones. So whether we agree or not, the war of the future will be a war of autonomous and semi-autonomous robotic systems. It is clear that the competition to use the full potential of autonomous swarm UAVs will provide a decisive advantage, likely to provide a decisive advantage in both immediate combat effectiveness and security guarantees. Of course, the prospects for developing drone swarm technologies, ground, surface, and underwater in Ukraine must be considered in light of the critical dependence on global microelectronic supply chains. Therefore, future security alliances will likely be built on the principle of resource security. Unfortunately, for Ukraine, the development of relevant national capabilities is impossible without the full implementation of a sustainable partnership and the introduction of appropriate policies in the field of military digital products and services. From a technological point of view, the Russian-Ukrainian war is currently in a transitional period. This is a period when technology is developing rapidly, but its development is still insufficient to, for example, completely eliminate human presence in the combat zone or ensure the complete autonomy of unmanned systems. However, it has been impossible to carry out the operational tasks of a classic war for more than 2 years. Traditional weapons and structures are still being used, but are gradually being phased out or transformed. With Russia unable to achieve its political goals in the war and Ukraine refusing to surrender, Russia is stepping up its attacks on infrastructure, energy systems, transport hubs, and other key elements of state administration and life support. Therefore, the strategy of the war is now aimed not so much at seizing, capturing territory, as at depleting the enemy's resources and capabilities in order to achieve its goals. All this is happening against the backdrop of the expected destabilization of the disbalancing of old world order. This is also exacerbated by the US policy of non-compliance with the international legal framework, which could lead to the ultimate destruction of the existing international system, a system, by the way, that could purely theoretically take measures against the aggressor country and serve as a future basis, for example, for a peace treaty. Among other things, these steps by the US are exacerbating contradictions within NATO and leading to a decline in both the real effectiveness of the alliance and most importantly, coordinated assistance to Ukraine. Russia, meanwhile, is exploiting the situation to reduce sanctions, expand its military-industrial complex, accumulate the necessary technology, and obtain additional support from China. By inviting Ukraine to negotiations, it is starting a war on a much higher strategic level, a war against women, children, and the elderly, sparing neither expensive missiles nor Shaheeds, suicide bombers, forcing them to freeze in cold cities, hoping for a quick surrender. In such a situation when the tension and intensity of the war of attrition is increasing, it is of course necessary to find a solution that would not only not harm the current geopolitical situation, but will also become the basis for future peace based on the strength of potential opportunities, not obligations. Such a solution may include the implementation of 3 parallel tasks. The first and most difficult task is to preserve the maximum number of partners and respect their interests, without which it is impossible today to withstand Russian attacks, exert pressure, and effectively build a future defense alliance without harming future allies. This is a delicate and balanced diplomatic effort, which had no parallel in world history due to the completely unprecedented conditions in which all participants in this process find themselves, because the old rules no longer work, but people still have high hopes on them, and the new ones have not yet even been formulated yet. And when that will happen and in what time frame is unknown. Personally, for me, the main condition for this process, is the preservation of democracy and freedom and the standard of living, which is the main achievement, for example, for Europe. At the same time, there's a great risk of coming to situational agreements, cynical arrangements, and short-term interest without any common framework. However, this must be done, because it is the lessons of this war that speak of the need to join forces to create defense capabilities. This war, as well as an analysis of the current development of the military capabilities of the world's leading countries, demonstrate the following. Individual states will be able to independently create technological superiority in certain areas, but no state will be able to ensure self-sufficiency across the entire spectrum of critical military technologies. Therefore, the search for alliances and partnerships for joint development and exchange of advanced technologies and strengthening of production capacities will become an absolute necessity, not only for us, but also for countries seeking to ensure their own technological superiority and competitive capabilities in potential conflicts.